There we go. Good morning, everybody. It's such a beautiful Wednesday morning, smack in middle of the week. And what a great week it is. And what a great week it's still going to be. It's Wednesday morning, and you know what Wednesday brings? Wednesday brings JText. And call jewishcenter.info/JText tonight at 7 p.m. exactly. You'll be receiving a text with a question of Jewish knowledge to test your Jewish knowledge. And if you answer the question correctly, if you're the seventh, you win a bottle of wine. If you're not the seventh, you still win. You win the knowledge and the information that you'll learn. It's a very fun and engaging game. So please share the word, spread the word. It's excitement in the community at 7 on Sunday and Wednesday evening. And tomorrow morning, we will announce the winner. I also want to bring your attention to our recordings, because today I'm going to reference a class we had yesterday. jewishcenter.info/recordings is where you can find recordings of all our morning and pre-Shabbat events. Avail yourself of this opportunity amongst everything else that we do on our center virtually as we navigate through these challenging times in and out of them. So, my dear friends, today is a very short but inspiring story, and it's connected to what we discussed yesterday, Judaism's big idea about life having a clear purpose here and now in this material and physical reality that we exist. And again, I encourage you to go to our recordings yesterday and to tune in tomorrow as we conclude that big idea. But after the class, I received a question from someone. Rabbi, don't we believe in heaven and hell? Don't we believe in the afterlife? Isn't it all about the afterlife? And the answer is, of course. Judaism brought the world the idea of afterlife and heaven and hell, but not in the way that the world has chosen to accept it. Afterlife is very important in Judaism, but it's important how it informs the here and now, because life is lived in the moment that God blesses you with breath. And I'm going to share a story today that talks not just about afterlife, but about a very, very important thing I realized yesterday that's going on in our society. And I think it's a good thing. There are good things going on, but it's something that I want to bring to the attention to all of you and to the people that are following this online. And I heard the story yesterday. My mother shared it with me. Thank you, Mommy, if you're listening to it. And I think it's a beautiful story. So here we go. There's a colleague of mine who actually is part of this story that went to visit a very, very wealthy individual in New York City. And I'm going to change the name and the location. That's the only details I'm changing as to hide this person's identity. So he goes to visit this extremely wealthy man. We're going to call him Michael. And he goes to visit Michael in his office in New York City, in a penthouse office on one of the New York City's, Manhattan's greatest, tallest skyscrapers. Beautiful view, beautiful office. And as Mike is taking away this colleague of mine, taking him around, showing him the beautiful offices, the beautiful furniture, the beautiful art, the many different things that they have there, collector's items, they make themselves into Mike's private conference room. That's where Mike does all his business, does all his important meetings, does all his deals. And they're talking, and my colleague notices that there is a interesting vase in the middle of the conference table. And in this vase aren't flowers. In this vase are a bunch of broken pieces of glass. And obviously there's something here, and he's like, it's kind of distracting him a little bit. And Mike, the host, says, I see you're intrigued by this vase in the middle of the conference table. Let me tell you, this isn't one of the multi-million-dollar pieces of art that I've invested in. This actually cost me $300. Yes, well, what's the story? And he begins his story, Mike, that he was brought up in a fairly observant home out in LA, a home that kept Shabbat most of the time. He went to Jewish day school. Certainly the high holidays, Passover was absolute in the house. He even would daven. He would pray regularly, put on his tefillin very often, So came from a fairly observant background. When he turned 18, his grandfather, who lived in New York City, invites him, says, Baitcha, come help me with my business. Mike was a very smart kid, a very shrewd kid, and the grandfather wanted him around. They had a great relationship. Mom and dad said, Gesundheit, hey, sure, go help grandpa, go work with grandpa. And grandpa realized that Mike has a lot of great talent, not only to help him in his own business, but he actually gave him some capital to start his own business. And Mike starts investing this money and is building a business, and at a very young age becomes very, very successful, extremely successful, not just for a kid his age or a young man his age at this point in his 20s, but in general, for any businessman. And what happens when you really put yourself into business? Slowly, you start to focus more on the business than on things that matter in your life. And Mike continues to tell my colleague this story. And, I found less and less time to pray. Shabbat many times was a conflict with different business trips that I needed to take. Keeping kosher, which I did fairly well in my home, kind of went out the window. And before I knew it, I really had no connection to my religious root, ritual, or observant. It was totally absent in my life, to the extent that I met a woman. She happened to have been Jewish. We got married. We had a few children, and I sent them off to a Quaker boarding school, top education. There was absolutely no remnant of anything Jewish in my life, my family's life. I was so focused on business. My wife was also focused on business. We're both very career-oriented, and that's where our life was. Very successful, and that's what happened. One day, I took a trip to Milano, Italy, a business trip, and we had this very intense meeting in a bank's office, and we succeeded. We concluded the deal. And as I'm walking out of the facility, the bank, to my car, the limousine that's waiting for me, I notice at the corner of the block, there's a little kid just sitting and weeping. And I heard it. It wasn't just crying. He was weeping. He was sobbing. You could hear it probably a half a block away. This was the corner. I asked my driver, take me over. So let's see what's going on. Takes me to the corner. I look at this kid. I see what's going on. I also noticed he happens to have been a Jewish kid. So that even tugged at my heart a little more. It reminded me of where I was as a child. Why are you sobbing? Why are you crying? I asked the child. The child looks at me, and in between his sobs, he says, I come from a very, very poor family, very large family. My dad this afternoon went to the drawer, took out a little bit of money, went to another drawer. I was able to scrape enough money for me to go for him. And he asked me to take this money and go buy a little jar of oil so that we can light the Hanukkah menorah. Tonight is the first night. And I bought the jug of oil, but look, it fell. All the oil is all over the street or the corner. The glass is broken. What am I going to tell my father? What am I going to tell my daddy? And this gentleman, Mike, looks at him and says, young boy, don't worry. And he takes out a couple $100 bills from his pocket. And he says, here, take the money, go buy another jug of oil or whatever the Italian currency was. Go buy another jug of oil and keep the rest of the money for you and your brothers for Hanukkah Geld and enjoy it. And of course, this kid's life was like transformed. But as the kid started to be happy and joyful, Mike starts to walk back to his limousine. And the whole trip back to his hotel, he's engrossed in thought. And as Mike gets into his hotel room, he bursts out in tears. He starts to cry. He starts to think in himself those words, what am I going to tell my daddy? What am I going to tell my father? And Mike thinks, what am I going to tell my father? My Father in heaven, my Creator, who gave me so much, who expects so much from me in this world. And I don't have any part of his religion or any part of his faith or any part of his Yiddishkeit, of his Torah in my life. It's all shattered. It's all broken. I gave it all up for this career. Millions of dollars, buildings all over the world. But what am I going to tell my daddy when he asks me, what did I do with the blessings that came? He was so moved by this experience. He went right down, asked his driver to take him back to that corner, and collected all these pieces of glass of that broken jar to remind him of this experience. And he tells my colleague that from that moment on, my wife and I made a conscious decision to reintroduce our traditions into our family, to reintroduce our traditions into our home, to reintroduce the presence of our daddy into our lives, not to give up everything we have, but to bring it with a meaning and a purpose, to recognize the blessings that he has given us, to help build and bring the goodness into the world, to help bring and build his presence in this world, for that's what we were here for. And then he turns to my colleague and he says, that's why this vase is here, because these are those broken glasses that reminds me after every business deal, every day that I'm here in the office, focusing on my business, to remember, what am I going to tell my daddy of how I live my life in this world? And this, my friends, is such an inspiring message. Of course, we believe in an afterlife, but we don't work towards our afterlife. What we're going to tell our daddy needs to inform us now, not to be guilty, but to realize that we have a purpose and we have a mission. Knowing that there's a reconciliation that has to take place at the end of the day inspires us to do what we have to do now, because this is where it is. Today, it's what it's all about. This moment is what it's all about. There's such blessing. There's such greatness in this moment. Yes, there are very challenging times, but there's opportunity, spiritual opportunity. What are we going to tell our daddy? Did we take advantage of that opportunity? And this is the message I want us to focus on today. We look around, there's a lot of darkness in the world, correct. But there's something else going on. We're slowly rebuilding our life. There's no doubt that over the last few months, each of us had shattered glass. Our life was broken. Not necessarily devastating. Thank God we have our health. We can breathe. We can communicate. But things in our life were broken. We couldn't do this anymore. We couldn't do that anymore. Everything is different. We have a lot of broken glass. Now we're slowly collecting that glass. Now we're slowly getting out of this. And one step at a time, we are reintroducing things into our life. We're able to go out. We can go eat out. You can't go into the restaurant. You can eat outside of the restaurant. There are services in shul. Not everyone can go. Some can go. There's going to be a day camp. People are on the street. Businesses are opening slowly. But I ask all of you, and as I ask myself, everything we are bringing back into our life, let's not take it for granted. Let's realize there was a time that we couldn't have it, and we missed it. And thank God we can bring it back. Let's appreciate it. Let's ask ourselves, what lesson did we learn by not having this? How much more value will we have by reintroducing it and allowing it to be brought back into our life? Let's collect those shattered glasses. Let's not leave pieces of glass. Let's not leave it all behind us and forget about us. Let it put us conveniently in a vase, in a little section of our mind, to remember the lessons learned while we didn't have the things we're so used to, so that we can appreciate them more when they return and we get them back. Beautiful story. Thank you, Mommy, again for sharing it. But I like to share it with all of you because this is such a valuable message. So today, or every day, as things are rebuilding, remember not only to appreciate of having it back, but to remember the lessons learned when you didn't have it, so you can keep that, not for your afterlife, but for today and tomorrow and the life that God blesses us with. I want to wish you, I want to wish you all a wonderful day, a meaningful day. And tomorrow, tune in again at 8:30 as we continue the very, very big idea about clarity and purpose and what life is really all about. But until then, there's a lot of purpose and clarity that we can have in the next 24 hours. Every hour Every moment and every second that we are alive and we are breathing is a great blessing and a great opportunity. Let's be thankful.